Welcome everyone to another edition of Play It Through, and on this edition is Asterix, brought to us by Infogames. Asterix is a great platformer that was based on a very popular French comic. The comic has been running since 1959 and still runs to this day. Asterix is all about a small town in Gaul, which is modern-day France, as the town tries to resist the takeover of Roman rule. One of the main reasons why the town never gets taken over is one of its town members is able to create magic potions to give people super strength. So, they drink the potion, get super strength, and are able to fight off the Romans. Asterix's best friend, and the character who ends up getting kidnapped that we have to rescue in this game, Obelix, was actually bathing in it as a small baby, and it permanently gave him super strength. Here we go with Asterix for the NES. Now, as you can see, the storyline is pretty simple. We're playing as Asterix as he's trying to journey through a couple of countries in order to get to Rome in order to save his friend Obelix. There's a total of 4 different levels to go through, each broken up into 3 different acts, and the first act is in Gaul. Asterix is primarily a European comic, so it was only released in the PAL format. And it was released rather late in the NES library in 1993. The graphics are quite good and colorful, and there's some pretty cool animations. Throughout the game, you can punch the A blocks in order to find different items, including the stars and vases. Now, the stars give you 1 star, which you can see is counted up in the upper right corner, while the vase gives you multiples. You can also find a few other items, including a symbol, which ends up giving you super strength and invulnerability for a period of time. During the first stage, you can jump on the backs of these boars in order to ride over the spikes, instead of just trying to make the long jump yourself. When you punch certain blocks, a key will appear not too far from where you punched the block. It'll then take you to a small bonus room where you can go around and collect some extra stars and vases, before then jumping on the other key and exiting out to the main screen again. In a very unique fashion, you actually jump on a catapult at the end that has a rock that sends you flying off the screen, and it allows you to complete the stage. I also want to apologize if I get any of the backstory or character name wrong or say anything wrong about the series. I must admit that I've never actually had the opportunity to read the Asterix's comics. It's something I've always wanted to do, because I've seen the Asterix games for a long time. Of course, I only played them originally through emulation, and I fell in love with this game mainly due to its soundtrack. In level number 2, you have a few more gaps that you'll have to jump over, including these moving cloud platforms that you can jump to in order to get over the gaps. There's tons of these different bonus rooms, and I won't be showing all of them throughout the game, but they all contain pretty much the same little bits of stars and vases, and then another key that you can use to exit. Be very careful of these log enemies. They're probably one of the more annoying ones because they throw an acorn out that has an arcing pattern. Try to do your best to dodge underneath of it or jump over it, and be sure to hit the enemy before he ends up throwing another one out. The third level is kind of at a base. Watch out for the spear throwing enemies that we've been seeing. These normal type enemies we'll pretty much be seeing throughout most of the game. They throw a spear, and then a few seconds later they'll throw another one. The good thing is, though, you can actually duck underneath the spear if it's being thrown directly at you, so you don't actually have to jump up. Right there, I was able to get the pot that gives me invulnerability and super strength for a period of time. There's also a symbol that does the same thing, so I'm not sure what the difference is exactly between that pot that I picked up, as well as the symbol that we'll see later on. Watch out for the catapults that throw out the fireballs. They're really easy to dodge, and you have a good amount of time after they throw one before they throw another one. Plus, you can walk by it, and since you're walking in the foreground, you won't get hurt by the fire. After every third level, you're getting to this extra segment where you have to jump on barrels and take out an enemy in the upper right corner. I guess it's kind of a bonus level, or the boss battle for that particular stage. You end up doing that one 3 times before you actually get to the end of the game where you fight an actual boss. It's the same room every time you go there, and it's pretty much the same exact pattern of the barrels. The barrels can't hurt you, and you'll be able to jump on them and just time your jumps correctly so you can get up top. However, the guy can hurt you, so be sure that you don't jump too far into him and hit him before you end up getting to him. The next level takes place in Helvetia, which is located in Switzerland. This world is a snow-themed level. You have some icy platforms, and most of the enemies are going to be these snowmen that throw different types of snowballs at you. You can't duck underneath of them, so you'll have to jump in order to avoid getting hit by them. One of my only real complaints about the game is the controls can be a little bit slippery at times, but I ended up finding that actually pretty useful because it allows me in order to make a back turn while I'm doing a jump, so in case I accidentally didn't jump far enough, and I can kind of come back mid-jump. The second level is filled with platforms, so you'll have to have some pretty good platforming here in order not to accidentally slip inside one of those pits. The enemies remain the same though, and the bird enemies are probably one of the more annoying ones that we see here, because they can sometimes not just fly directly at you, they sometimes fly in a circle pattern. The circle ones are a little bit more annoying because they can sometimes dodge your attacks and be a little bit harder to hit. After doing some pretty tricky platforming, and one more bird enemy will eventually finally come to solid ground and get launched by the catapult to complete the stage. We actually go to a completely different style level for 2-3. It takes place on the beaches of Spain. There's lots of water everywhere, so be careful not to accidentally fall down in it and lose a life that way. Easily the most annoying part about this whole stage is the fish. You can't punch them, so you can't defeat them, so you'll have to wait for them to hover over and go back down into the water before you attempt to jump over them. Thankfully though, there is an invulnerability at the beginning of the stage, so you can use that to your advantage to get through a lot of them. The spear-throwing soldier enemies are back, so be ready to dodge their spears by ducking under it or just waiting before you attempt to get too close and try to actually punch them. At the end of the level, we get launched once again, and after our score gets racked up, it's time for another barrel boss. Be careful of the pits. As you can see, it's the same room as before. Jump on one of the barrels, either the first or second one, and then just wait a couple of seconds for the next one. You'll pretty much have your anticipation ready, and you'll be able to make the jump pretty easily, so you can get up to his platform and take him out in order to complete the level. Act number 3 takes place in Egypt, which is always cool to me since Egypt levels are probably some of my favorites. One of the other things about the game is it actually can be pretty easy. Besides just falling into a pit, you of course can lose a life if you take too many hits. But you start off with 4 health, and you actually have 5 total, because you'll have 1 extra head even after all your wings have been taken. While their appearance has changed, the soldier enemies are the exact same as before. They may look different, but they're still throwing spears that you can easily duck under or jump over. Wait for the right timing so that you can jump to the moving platform so you don't misstep and end up falling down into the spikes. If you go up here and grab the item, you'll get to a special bonus game. This special bonus game has you jumping on barrels that are floating in the water. When you jump on one, it starts to sink. You can keep jumping amongst them for a few seconds until the time runs out while you're trying to collect different items. Once the time runs out, however, you move on to the next level. Stage 3-2 in Egypt is inside of a pyramid, and it's the first of 2 of these roller coaster style levels. You have moving platforms that'll take you around the whole stage. One of the more annoying things about this stage is you have 2 enemies, the fireballs that come out of the ground, as well as you have spider enemies. You can't actually punch either one of them, so you'll have to duck underneath the spiders as they're going back up, and then try to do your best to either sit on the far end of a platform, or move up closer, or even jump sometimes over the fireballs to avoid them. When the track ends though, you'll get another one of the catapults to launch you off to finish Act 3-2. "3-3 is another one of the pyramid levels. Be careful of the hieroglyphics that are going to be throwing fireballs, as you can see at you. There was a few of these in the last level, but since you were moving the whole time, it really wasn't too much of a problem. Drop down here, being careful of the spikes to the left, and punch the snake. Here you can see the door in the upper left corner there is actually our exit, but we have to walk all the way to the right here before we can get to the upper set of platforms. Be careful of the spear-throwing enemies, as well as a couple of the little spiders that are crawling across the ground. Since you can't punch them, you'll have to jump over them. When you make it to the end, jump up on the platforms and start heading now to the left on the upper platforms. Thankfully, you get an invulnerability for a little bit of the time, so you can run through a lot of the early spiders. Instead of a catapult, we'll enter the door in order to finish this level. But after 3-3 is another one of the barrel segments, the last one for the game. The platforms are definitely smaller here, but it's still the same way to beat it. Jump on the barrels in the right time so you can get up to the upper right platform, and give the enemy a nice punch to the face. The final levels of the game are in Act 4, and that takes place in Rome. The first one starts off in a small town. As you can see, the soldiers have returned to the normal Roman spear throwers that we saw earlier on in the game. Now, instead of bird enemies, we have these bee enemies, which can be definitely annoying since they're a little bit smaller, but they pretty much get taken out the same way. After one of those weird spring bird enemies that we've been seeing, you can get to the catapult and launch yourself off to complete the stage. Level 4-2 is the second one of the roller coaster style levels. While this one is definitely tougher than the first one, it's not too much more tricky to deal with. You'll have to dodge most of the fireballs, and they always seem to come in twos during this stage, so they can be a little bit more trouble to dodge. When you get over here, be sure to drop down to the platform so you can grab yourself the invulnerability, and use that in order to get through a lot of the upcoming enemies. Right here, you may want to step on the platform first before jumping on the actual coaster, and take out the enemy before getting the coaster to start moving. Overall though, the level's not too long, and we get another catapult to launch us off and complete the stage. We now have only one more act to go. 4-3 takes place in one of the Roman palaces. The real tricky part about this is you have a lot of these fireball throwing platforms. While they'll stay still when you jump on them, you'll have to avoid getting hit by the fireball. There's also a couple of smaller platforms that when you jump on them after a second or two, they'll immediately start plunging towards the ground. Watch out for the spear thrower here. Get him to throw his spear before you jump up to the small platform, so you can get up without having to worry about it. Here we have another set of the fireball platforms. Take your time and duck on the second one to try to avoid the spear, before jumping over and finishing the stage. We now have the boss battle for the game. As you can see, Obelix is below. Do a jumping punch at first, and then the guy will try to stab you with his spear. Get behind him and attack him from behind. Then just get up close as he moves his way back to the right wall, and it only takes a few punches to take him out and you'll be able to complete the game. Usually I like to punch and jump away so I can avoid his spear. And there you have the ending to Asterix. Now, for a little added bonus, I'm going to stop my commentary here and let you enjoy the ending music, which I think is one of the best tracks ever. So there you have Asterix for the NES. I hope you enjoyed that extra little bonus there of getting to listen to the music at the ending. It's definitely one of my favorite tracks for the NES. But with that, it's going to wrap up this edition of Play It Through. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course, I hope you enjoyed.